everyone, it's Christina from Our Wood Home. Today I'm going to be answering some questions that people have asked me either on Instagram or just things that I've heard often because people seem to like these kinds of videos, and I thought it'd be kind of different and kind of fun, give you a chance to get to know me a little bit better. I've got the questions saved on my iPad. The first question is, do I have any experience with pellet heating and what are the pros and cons? So we heat our home with 2 wood stoves. That's our primary source of heat, although we do have a propane furnace as a backup, but we don't use it. So I don't have any experience with a pellet stove. There was one in our house when we first moved in, but it was not up to code, and it was going to cost us thousands of dollars to bring it up to code. We chose not to do that and instead buy a wood stove because I've heard with pellet stoves they can kind of wear out faster because of the mechanism that is used. It's an auger system, and you fill the auger with the material to burn, and then it kind of grinds it down and puts it in the belly of the stove, I think. If you have never heard of a pellet stove, you may be so confused as to what I'm talking about, but if you are familiar with pellet stoves, hopefully I'm explaining it properly and correctly. I don't know. So, simple answer, I am not familiar with pellet stoves enough to say whether they are worth using. We chose to use regular wood stoves because the wood is more readily available, whereas the pellet stoves require a certain specific type of fuel that may not be as accessible. Next question, what is your favorite tea? I don't drink tea. I hate tea with a passion. It makes me feel very strange when I drink it. I get very lightheaded and my vision blurs, almost like I'm going to faint, and I don't know why this is. I've tried different types of tea, like herbal tea and decaffeinated and other kinds, I don't know, and I get the same reaction every time. I also just don't like the taste of it. It's very weak, so I'm not a fan. My hot drink of choice is either hot chocolate or cider. Okay, somebody asked me, what is my head covering journey / story and current status? So I do have a video here on YouTube where I go into greater detail about my head covering journey. My current status, I think, is referring to, do I wear one all the time? Am I part-time? What's the situation? So I wear one most of the time. I'm wearing one now. I always wear one when I go to church and when I go out in public or when people come over. I usually wear one during the day at home because it just keeps my hair out of my face. But some days I don't wear one at all because I have a migraine or I'm sick in bed or something like that. But I've explained that in greater detail in the video on my channel, so I'll link that in the cards up above and also in the description of this video. Somebody else asked me if I ever feel depressed as a stay-at-home wife, and they said if they personally didn't struggle with depression and purposelessness, that she would love staying home. I don't like to self-diagnose and say that I've ever been depressed, but I've definitely had my lows, I guess, because I don't have any kids, so sometimes I would feel like I'm just all by myself at home. There's nobody to interact with. I live out in the country, so I can't even really go into town for errands. And as of September 2018, I think, we've just been a one vehicle family. So that also limits the amount of interaction I have with the outside world, because I can't just go into town, which is about 40 minutes away. I can't go into town whenever I want. I have to work around David's schedule. So I don't feel depressed as a stay-at-home wife, but there's definitely times where I feel like I'm kind of spinning my wheels, I guess, like I'm going nowhere because I'm not doing anything. I've written some blog posts about this kind of thing, so I'll link those in the description of the video if anybody is curious to read those. Next question. What got you started with head covering and observing more Torah? So this is a common misconception people have about me. I'm not Torah observant or Messianic Christian. People seem to think I am Messianic or Mennonite, Catholic, other things, I can't remember. I don't identify with any of those groups. I'm not saying any of those groups are wrong. I just don't identify that way. I just consider myself a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ, follower of God. I attend an evangelical church, and I've been brought up in evangelical churches, but I don't consider myself an evangelical per se. As to what got me started with head covering, again, that is talked about in my other head covering specific video. But I guess if I were to summarize it, I'd say I had seen head covering talked about online in different groups and social medias, and it was very interesting to me because it was not a concept I was familiar with growing up. So I did some research in the Bible about it, and it seemed like it was a personal preference and not something I was really interested in. And then I began doing more personal study on marital submission specifically, and through that study in scripture I became more convicted to wear head coverings. Do you have any tips on how to help head coverings stay on well and not slip, such as hairpins? Yes. So I almost always wear bobby pins on my head coverings. This one I don't need to because it's stretchy fabric, and I'm not going out and about today. I'm just at home. But if I were going out, I'd probably put some pins on because I prefer to wear my head coverings back a bit, more like that. I just find it more comfortable for long periods of time. So I do use bobby pins. I've also used those metal clips. I think they're called alligator clips, but I prefer bobby pins because they're a bit more subtle if I'm wearing a dark head covering. So usually I put 2 pins, let me position my covering like I would. I usually put 2 pins here and then 2 pins here above my ears, and that keeps my coverings in place. I have thick hair, but it tends to get oily. My hair's not dry, neither is my scalp, so because of that things do slip a bit on my hair, but the bobby pins help, as well as different fabrics of head coverings. So something really slippery like a silky or satiny fabric might not stay in place very well on my hair, but something with some texture might, like a velvet or similar fabric. So hopefully that answers that question. The next one is, have you ever visited out of your home country? You may not know this, but I am Canadian. I say that kind of cheekily because I feel like a lot of people know that I'm Canadian just by the way that I speak. I've been told that by my American friends that I just sound Canadian, especially when I say words like about or house. So if you did not know that I'm Canadian, surprise! I have been out of Canada before. My first trip out of the country was to France with my mum a few years ago. I've also been to the US twice. I went to Vermont to visit a dear friend. We just drove down. It was, I think, an 8 or so hour drive from where I live in Ontario, Canada. And then I went to Florida to go to Disney with my husband's family a couple years ago, and we flew down. So but that's it. I haven't gone anywhere else. Somebody asked me how I deal with head covering hate. I am glad that I don't have any of that negativity anymore. When I first started head covering, or being interested in head covering, I should say, I went over this in my head covering video, but I'll sum it up again. When I was first inquiring about head covering in different Facebook groups dedicated to head covering, I had very short hair. I had a pixie cut. And I was told that I shouldn't have short hair and that I can't wear a head covering because I have short hair. That was really the only hate I ever experienced regarding head covering. It was very off-putting, but I distanced myself from the people that were saying things like that online. I don't get any hate now because I think the style of covering that I wear is simple and modern enough that it doesn't look out of the ordinary. Like, it just looks like a headband, a fashion accessory, I guess. I've had people ask me why I wear a head covering all the time. I used to work at a small town grocery store, and when I worked there the first time, I had a pixie cut. I still wore pants. I used to wear makeup. And then when I came back a few years later, I was only wearing skirts, no makeup, and head coverings. And I think people noticed because of my skirt, because I was wearing an ankle-length skirt at a grocery store, or working at a grocery store. And once people noticed the skirt, I think they would notice the head covering as well, but I never got any hate from it, mostly just curious questions. If you are in that situation where you're getting negative or rude comments about your head covering, I would say try not to let it bother you. If it's strangers saying it, because they don't know you, they don't know your story. If it's family members or close friends or anything like that, I suggest being respectful and honest with them and tell them briefly why you choose to wear a head covering. I think something that's important to remember is when you're talking to other women who don't head cover, not to make them feel bad that they're not choosing to do that, because that's what happened to me and it was very off-putting. And I don't think that you can win anybody over by insulting their beliefs or being rude to them. That's just my experience. Next question. A lot of these are about head covering. What do you recommend for people who want to start daily head covering? Any tips? I would say, if you want to start wearing a head covering daily, to find a style that you like. This could take a while if you are unsure, because there's so many different styles. But I would say figure out which one you like, start simple, and choose a color and fabric that's easy enough for everyday wear, that goes with your clothing, and is comfortable. I prefer to wear my brown lace one because it blends in with my hair and it's loose, so it doesn't give me a headache, but it's comfortable and subtle. Yeah, so that's what I suggest. Somebody asked me how old I am. I am 29. I'll be 30 in September. Next question. Do you wear a head covering all the time? How did you decide when to cover? Like I said, I wear one most of the time. I don't wear one when I'm sleeping. I know a lot of women do, but I'm a very active sleeper, so it would just come off anyways. How I decided when to wear one, I guess would be based on scripture. So 1 Corinthians 11 says, it's the instruction about head covering, and it's specifically referring to corporate worship. So for that reason, I choose to wear a head covering at church. I know a lot of women also choose to wear one when they're reading scripture, when they're praying, any type of Bible study or discussions. I don't specifically put one on during those activities because I'm usually wearing one anyways. I chose to do it most of the day because I wanted to create that habit of wearing a covering. Yeah, that's it. I really should have written down my answers before so that I don't have to come up with it on the fly. If there's any questions you would like me to answer for a future video, feel free to leave those in the comments or reach out to me on any of my other social medias, which are linked in the description of this and every video. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about me and some of my beliefs. I know that most of them are about head covering, but I don't mind answering those. So yeah, thank you for watching. Feel free to comment if you have any other questions, and if you're new here, I hope you will consider liking this video and subscribing if you like the rest of my content. Thanks for watching!